watching South Asia Newsline, and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Thursday, the 5th of February. India to sign trade deal with US in March, says Commerce Minister. Pakistan concludes Balochistan operation. Analysts warn of strategic deadlock. And Zamaat pledges constructive ties with India ahead of Bangladesh election. And now for all the details. India's Minister of Commerce and Industry, Piyush Goyal, on Thursday announced the signing of a formal legal agreement on the US-India trade deal will be held around mid-March. Meanwhile, India has strengthened its relations with the US in a meeting held on critical minerals in Washington. We have a report.
India's Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal announced on Thursday that a formal legal agreement on the trade deal with the United States is expected to be signed around mid-March, with a joint statement expected to be issued within the next 4 to 5 days. Under the trade deal, U.S. tariffs on Indian goods will be reduced to 18% from 50%, while India is expected to halt purchases of Russian oil.
बहुत ही सार्थक चर्चा चल रही है भारत और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका के बीच, जो हमारे दोनों नेताओं ने निर्णय लिया है। हमारा पहला ट्रांच बायलैटरल ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट का लगभग तैयार हो गया है। हमारी उम्मीद है कि अगले 4-5 दिन में हम एक जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका और भारत के बीच में फाइनलाइज करके साइन कर देंगे और उस जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट के आधार पर शुरुआत हो जाएगी हमारे दोनों के बीच में इस समझौते की पहली कड़ी। साथ ही साथ एक फॉर्मल एग्रीमेंट ड्राफ्ट हो रहा है जिसको शायद महीना भर 1.5 महीना लग सकता है और उस फॉर्मल एग्रीमेंट को मिड मार्च तक साइन करने का अंदाजा है। लेकिन 18% जो यूएस टैरिफ्स घटने हैं वो जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट अनाउंस होने के बाद एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑर्डर द्वारा यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका कर देगा।
The deal has triggered political debate, particularly over its potential impact on Indian farmers. Addressing these concerns, Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan assured that interests of farmers remain fully protected. The U.S. has long sought greater access to India's dairy sector. However, India is expected to keep dairy outside the deal, citing its critical role in rural livelihoods.
हमारे छोटे किसान हो, बड़े किसान हो, हमारे कृषि उत्पाद मुख्य रूप से जो हमारे थे, वो सब के सब सुरक्षित रहेंगे। ऐसी कोई चीज के लिए बाजार नहीं खोला गया।
Meanwhile, speaking after attending the ministerial meeting in Washington on critical minerals on Wednesday, India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar said the talks were productive and outcome-oriented. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio highlighted the growing importance of cooperation in securing critical mineral supply chains.
That was the principal reason. It was a very good discussion. Critical minerals is a very important subject. The U.S. has been a partner for some years. Today they launched a new initiative called Forge, which we have supported. It's a kind of successor to the Mineral Security Partnership. So I think overall, to me it was a good meeting, very productive, very outcome-oriented, very business-like.
Moving on. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has reaffirmed his government's decision to boycott the group stage match against India in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2026, calling it an appropriate and carefully considered move. The Pakistan government has cleared the national team's travel to Sri Lanka for the tournament but has instructed it not to play the February 15 fixture against arch rival and tournament co-host India in Colombo. Sharif said Pakistan had taken a clear stand that sports should remain free from politics and added that the decision was also meant to show solidarity with Bangladesh. The tournament's build-up has been affected by geopolitical tensions, with Scotland replacing Bangladesh after the latest cited security concerns about the playing matches in India. The International Cricket Council, however, dismissed those concerns based on an independent security assessment and rejected requests for venue changes, saying they were not feasible at a late stage. The Pakistan Cricket Board has said it will follow the government's directive, while its position in the event of a potential knockout stage clash with India remains unclear. Meanwhile, Pakistan's military on Thursday said its operation in Restiv, Balochistan has ended and claimed more than 200 militants were killed following coordinated attacks by the banned Baloch Liberation Army that left dozens of security personnel and civilians dead. Analysts, however, warn the region remains locked in a strategic stalemate. We have a report.
After a wave of coordinated attacks by the separatist Baloch Liberation Army, BLA, in southwestern Balochistan province left over 50 security personnel and many civilians dead on Saturday. Pakistan's military on Thursday said that at least 216 militants were killed in a security operation launched against Baloch insurgents that has now concluded. Though analysts warn that the conflict has hit a strategic deadlock, fueling cycles of extreme violence.
If you look at the insurgency in Balochistan, it is deadlocked on the battlefield, which means that both sides, the insurgent side and the military, are not in a position to impose a military solution on the other. And the longer this deadlock persists without a political recourse, you will see more extreme forms of violence, like the one we saw the other day when a multiple coordinated attack was launched in 12 districts of Balochistan.
The banned BLA claimed that the attacks that were part of its operation dubbed Harif, or Black Storm, targeted security forces. Balochistan, which is Pakistan's largest and poorest province, has been turbulent for decades by an insurgency. The separatists demand greater autonomy and control over the region's mineral resources.
In my opinion, all insurgencies, all such movements, all such terrorist activities, they reach a certain peak and thereafter there is a decline because the states like Pakistan would not let it go without a response, and therefore there is going to be a decline. Now that decline is dependent upon the operational capacity that the government is going to put in place with regards to counterterrorism, and I'm sure the governance gaps that exist will also be covered, and all these things put together in a harmonized way, and the exposure that the terrorists have, they have given that kind of an exposure of themselves. So a lot is going to happen from there on.
Moving on. Kashmiri political activists have appealed the international community to press Pakistan to halt repression in POJK and Gilgit-Baltistan. They say Pakistan's narrative of Kashmir solidarity marks growing dissent and rights violations in the territories under its control.
Every year on February 5th, Pakistan marks what it calls Kashmir Solidarity Day, claiming to support the rights of Kashmiris. But critics say the event is nothing more than state-sponsored propaganda, aimed at diverting attention from Pakistan's own human rights record in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. UKPNP, United Kashmir People's National Party leader Jamil Maqsood has sharply criticized Islamabad, accusing it of suppressing political, social and democratic rights in POJK and POGB, even as protests intensify in the occupied regions against Pakistan's policies and proposed constitutional changes.
Pakistan at one end has occupied, marginalized, oppressed the people of Pakistani occupied territories of Jammu and Kashmir, commonly referred to as Azad Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan at one end, and on the other end they are staging so-called solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. This is the mockery of the word solidarity. I, on behalf of United Kashmir People's National Party, warn Pakistan to quit both the territories and revive the fundamental political, social, economical, constitutional, democratic and human rights of the people of both peripheries under its occupation since 1947 and 1949 respectively.
Maqsood underscored Pakistan has continued to erode human rights and democratic freedoms in the occupied regions, bringing legislations that further subjugate people's rights in POJK and POGB.
Right now, the people in both peripheries are staging protest, demonstration, and rejecting Pakistani policy of bifurcating the territory under its control. The so-called 28th Amendment would further deteriorate the human rights situation in both the regions. We appeal to the world community that they should use their good offices and diplomatic clout on Pakistan to stop its policies of repression and demonizing political activists, social rights activists, and civil society under the guise of so-called PICA Act and many others.
And Bangladesh is days away from the crucial national election that could reshape its political and diplomatic path. As campaigning enters its final stage, the Islamic Conservative Party, the Jamaat-e-Islami, has unveiled its election manifesto promising constructive and cooperative relations with neighboring countries, including India. The party has also outlined plans to strengthen Bangladesh's global standing, including improving the international credibility of the Bangladeshi passport. The party has pledged deeper involvement with the United Nations and international organizations, particularly on peace, security, human rights, and economic development. The polls are also historically significant for another reason. For the first time in decades, Bangladesh's dominant political figures, Sheikh Hasina and Khaleda Zia, the battling Begums, will not be on the ballot. Hasina remains in exile in India following her ouster after the July 2024 uprising, while Zia passed away recently after a prolonged illness. Khaleda Zia's son Tariq Rahman, however, remains a front-runner. Analysts say the absence of Hasina's Awami League has made the outcome difficult to predict. Meanwhile, Bangladesh Army said all arrangements are in place for a peaceful election on February 12, with around 1 lakh troops deployed.
With the kind guidance of our respected Chief Army Staff, Bangladesh Army will remain ever ready to assist the civil administration to hold a free and fair election on 12th of February. I would also like to mention here that we are ready to provide any security to the observers, those who will be coming for these election powers, especially the foreign observers.
The Human Rights Watch in its World Report 2026 has stated that the Taliban authorities in Afghanistan last year increased their repression of women and girls and enforced new regulations further curbing media freedom. The report notes that the country's already severe humanitarian crisis worsened by cuts in foreign aid, and the forced return of millions of Afghan refugees has deepened further. New draconian laws issued by the Taliban have further restricted women's freedom of movement and access to public spaces, while enforcing existing bans on post-primary education and limitations on employment. These abuses have been termed by UN experts as gender apartheid. The report further highlights restrictions curbing media freedom and arbitrary detention of critics. It urges international community to fund and support the new investigative mechanism on Afghanistan and to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghan people, stressing that no country should forcibly return Afghans who may face persecution or threats to their lives. And that's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Till then, good night.